Done our dough, chaps. We've done our dough.
Hello and welcome to Odds Week 4, the racing and betting and sports podcast where we try and turn a profit each week and recap the upcoming races for this weekend. So, recapping last week, what a fantastically huge week. Hanafubuki. I can't stop saying that name. I'm so happy with the way that it sat in the back of the field, came clear eventually, kept on chugging down the straight and eating into that margin, and great run behind Steel Run and getting $8 for the place, an absolute gift. I can't wait to follow this horse in the future. But for last week, it powered us along. Our $50 outlay turned into around $164, mostly thanks to Hanafubuki. But in that race, we were also got the trifecta with Steel Run winning, Fats 30-1, careering into third just at the last moment, but a really good run. So that was the stars aligned, and that was fantastic to get. And in the football AFL, close 3 out of the 4. Close obviously doesn't deliver the goods, but Melbourne were good, Brisbane were good winning. Essendon were very safe. I was very happy with that. Very safe a long way out with that 20-point buffer. Carlton, no good. I'm glad in a sense that the Orange Tsunami has returned. That's good for the game, but Carlton were not good for us, even though they had that 33-point lead early on, which you would have thought would have been good. So not to worry, we get the bonus bet back, which is great fuel and ammunition for this week. So last week has turbocharged us, and now we are showing a $91.75 profit on the racing and holding on to a $9.70 profit on the AFL. So overall, around about $100 up, looking at a 48% profit rate, which sounds great at the moment. That won't last. That's unsustainable, but it's definitely in the right direction, and it's a good place to be in to look into July and August. So just doing a quick recap of last week's bets. So Golden Warrior was beaten pretty quickly. It's interesting that the whole of last week we didn't collect any bonus bets on the racing. We either won money or we were nowhere, which I'm very happy with. So Golden Warrior, no good. Berkshire Breeze. I didn't know it was pronounced Berkshire, so I'm glad to have learnt that. Great win. Careered away. Only won about 80 cents, but happy to have done that. Just a Deal was fantastic from the back of the field, running down, just too tough. Ran down Craig, Craig was behind it, but beat Craig. Ran down Rise at Dawn, which, tough leader. So I thought that was a fantastic run, and ended up paying more on the tote, $9 as opposed to the $7.50 that we got it at, but that was great. Nothing really from Late Harvest. We did get the trifecta in that race. We only got a small payout, but it was nice to have nailed that that one of those 7, 8 or 9 would win, and then one of those 2 favourites would run second, and then we had the field for third. Interestingly, Craig ran third at $1.60, but we had La Zebra as part of the field that ran fourth at about 30-1, so could have been a huge boosted dividend close to that. And then race 4, again, delighted that Jenny's Meadow won so well, and it got a good run on the fence, so that was another great one there. The race after proved to be the raffle that it looked to be, and glad to have only invested a small amount. Starlight Scope really weakened out of it. Fearless Rider, on the other hand, was very, very good fighting on. It was still there late in the straight when a lot of the other horses that had been around it in the run had already tired. So that's one to look out for, to keep track of, which we will do. Race 6, Say No More, Hanafubuki. Reminds me of that great horse Fubu from the early 2000s. Reminds me of Japanese Precision. I'm going to go on about this horse a lot in the future. But yes, last week, fantastic. Eliud, not so good. We did have the each way bet on that, looking for the bonus bets back, but that did not deliver. Steel Run was an excellent run, and it did get the best run of the race, but it used it, and it just was out in front and won easily. So should go on and be a bit of a top line horse. Why Worry? Weak. Windstorm, no, nowhere. Just battled at best. Munamek, still so good. And then going down a little bit further, British Angel didn't really deliver in the last. Lynx, I've been quite keen on Lynx. I've been talking about it, whenever it's been running, but wasn't a day to lead down the straight. Lynx was, pretty poor. Ferrari at $2.30. That would have cost a lot of people a lot of money, but that came nowhere. And then in Brisbane, money back because it was abandoned. So, return of $164.52 on the AFL, a return of $0 with a $20 bonus bet. And then jumping straight into this week. Okay, so Caulfield Race 1. This looks pretty simple on paper. Ender's Dream at the $1.60 seems like a good bonus bet back second or third option, good recent runs. I don't think it's quite as easy as that. It's going to get, thinking about what if you were to back it, what you would be faced with, it's probably going to go back from barrier 1. Best case scenario, it might be behind the leader and then get a nice run out and a nice passage through in the straight and win. Worst case, it could be shuffled back. It could be blocked for a run. It's 1-2 from 8, so it really should be around that $2.50 mark, but it's $1.60. It's just, I'm not sure the value's there. Lover Zoo has got quite good form. Each time that it's sort of run midfield, it's bounced back and won, which I quite like in a horse. It should get a fairly decent run on the speed from barrier 2. Romantic Choice was very, very tough last start, very impressive. From barrier 7, that should go up, and I like that as a place bet in this race. Even though there's only 2 place dividends, I think that's going to carry on that form will be very hard to run down. Into You has raced in stronger races than this, including good form over middle distances, so I feel like that's a little bit undervalued. Obviously, the unknown is being first up, and it sort of trailed off of its form last prep, so it's sort of turning people off. I think I'd like to have an each-way bet on Lover Zoo. I'd like to have it on Romantic Choice for the place. And then to try a trifecta with Romantic Choice, which I think will be in the top 3, and Lover Zoo, so 4 and 5 as roving bankers, and then mix that with the field. And then a Quinella for 3, 4 and 5, just with the chance that Ender's Dream might not get the best run, or it might just have a flat run after 3 placings. I'd like to take it on. I don't think there's that much to lose by doing so, really. Okay, race 2. Big field. This is another question of value, really. If you were going to bet on He's Beset, is it really offering value at $3.40 from barrier 16? The form looks really great. Second spell, first, second. I just question what kind of run it's going to get and whether it's going to be able to hold off all of these other horses. With so many sort of mixed form lines, Place of Gold has had really good form in the past. 2 duck eggs this prep, and hence it's now around 50-1. But often punters don't like volatility, and when there's a horse with 7s, 8s, 9s, over 10s in the form lines, people just see that as unsafe and they don't want to be associated with it, and you can just get a lot of over odds. So I want to be on that with the $20 bonus bet from last week. I think split that into 4 $5 bets. Use one of them here for the place on Place of Gold. There's a few down the order, just getting back to sort of the overall race. Like Impending Shadow's been running well in weaker races. Rick's Cafe, not too bad. Federal, it's an interesting race. Federal's coming back off of a big long break. It's a bit of a Wild West sort of thing. Everyone's going to be firing from different angles in this race, and it's just, you just don't really know where the winner's going to come from. Kingswood, very consistent form, good first up. Sandpaper would be a good option if it wasn't wet, but with that, it just throws a bit of chaos into it. So it's a bit of a raffle. I don't think the value's there for He's Beset, so then begs the question of where do you look? I like that bonus bet option on Place of Gold. El Rocco has, I think it's the right horse at the right time that makes the most sense. Barrier 1, it's got very good form coming into this. It should get a fairly decent run, and for that bonus bet back second or third, I think it makes sense just to have a small play on that each way. Also, I'll have a little something on the win for Place of Gold in case it could pull out a win at 50-1. And then a box Quinella. Maximilian Caesar, first up, interested to see what it will do. Place of Gold, Kingswood, El Rocco and Federal. And then the same for a trifecta, just for small amounts, just to see. I don't expect a lot from this. Rogue Rock is also there. General Firepower is going to go forward and could do something. Just a race for a small play, nothing huge, even though I'm having one of the bonus bets on it. But yeah, nothing huge. I think there's better options for later in the day. Okay, so race 3 at Caulfield. I really like, in general, these races where there's a lot of first starters. I think it offers a lot of value. I think in races like this, favourites can be overrated sometimes. Going from the top, Husk was my sort of top pick at one stage. It's a race I had to sort of change views on a number of times. It's got good form. It's got a good draw from barrier 1. It's proven on the wet, and it's had a lot of trials. So it seems like a pretty consistent sort of bet at that 750. Kalimna Views. It's the favourite at the moment, $6.50, which just tells you how much of an open race it is, on fixed. I'm always a bit suspect of the format of Pakenham, Cranbourne, and by extension Geelong. Don't know from barrier 12 if I really want to be on that. Loafer, nice win from a suitable race first up. That's probably what I would say. Turbinado's a prominent, in my mind, horse. It's had good form, and then it eased out of the race. Something was wrong. Something was genuinely wrong that day. So that would be no surprise if it went straight to the lead, had returned to its previous form, and offered a lot of value at the $9. Flying Straz, 2-year-old filly out of Pirata. I don't like it today. I don't like it, but I've got a funny feeling that it might be a horse that's going to improve. So I'm just sort of wary of that. Portia Crystal, I think it will lead from barrier 11. There's quite a few that are going to attack the lead in this race. So it will be interesting from a speed map point of view. Serena has had no trials at that 20 to 1 price point, also out of Pirata. Star Angel, another interesting first starter out of Toronado. Manolo Bling, there's been money for. And then On Display, $1 million horse. So changed opinion about this race multiple times. Ultimately, I'm going to go each way on Berezka. First starter trained by Kieran Maher. I just think that from barrier 10, it's going to avoid a lot of that clutter of the speed battle early on. Could get quite a decent run midfield, and then I'm imagining that it's going to run on. So more out of, because I eliminated sort of some other options. I mean, Husk also did have Sydney form, and Caulfield can be a bit of a graveyard for that. So each way on Berezka, Cornella for Husk, Turbinado Berezka, Serena Star Angel. And then trifectas, it's so open that I don't want to just have something that's this giant 7-horse box trifecta. So I'm going to do a roving banker for Berezka and Serena and rove that with the field, and then do another one, Berezka and Star Angel, roving with the field. An interesting race, possibly not the most, a race that offers a lot of certainty, but certainly interesting. Okay, race 4 at Caulfield. These races, this race is over 2,000 metres. These races, in general, for young horses at these distances, I think offer a lot of value in the sense that a lot of the horses are improving, and the favourite's usually judged on its previous runs, which have been at maybe over 1,400 or 1,600, and then now over, say, the 2,000. It's a bit of a different ball game. Methusalem I've backed previously, and it really wasn't a good run. It didn't challenge, and I feel like it's going to sit 8th, and I just don't like that at Caulfield unless it's obviously a run on track, which should be apparent by about race 4. I don't think, I'm not sure why it's $8 tomorrow, so that's an avoid. Rezone, a big powerful, we had this in exotics last time at Flemington. It's a big powerful horse running on down along Flemington Straight where it was good last time. I just don't think that's going to be, I just don't like that at Caulfield. I don't know if it's going to have the time to build into the race. I don't know what sort of run it's going to get at that 270. Certainly probably the horse out of the race that will go on to be the best out of them. But its worst run has also come on slow. So I think there's a few question marks there from barrier 10, I sort of want to avoid a little bit. Do you think so? I think at 13 to 1 is interesting. Eye for an Eye. I love the name of this. Out of Kodiak, which sort of sounds like Kodak and cameras, and out of Intaglia, which means an image in relief. So I think that they've done very well calling it Eye for an Eye here. It's mixed. It's had a sixth and a first. Barrier 12, it could go forward. I haven't included it in anything, but I've got an eye on it. Pure Grunt, I think, is value at 10 to 1. Boga Legend, I like the way that it ran on at Warrnambool. It was really, really good, and it seems to like wet tracks a lot more than dry. So it does get good conditions to suit tomorrow. But from barrier 2, if it's going to go back, that's a bit of a question mark of where it's going to be at Caulfield. Patsy Star is at 20 to 1. I like the way that it's improved sharply getting up to this distance range. Something about it has caught my eye. I have seen that the trainer is 0 from 15 at Caulfield, which obviously doesn't lend a lot of confidence. But I think it will get a good run from barrier 8, sort of be midfield off the speed. So this race, I'd like to be each way on Patsy's Star and Boga Legend, maybe one on the tab, one on Sportsbet. And then a Quinella I like the 7, the 9 and the 10, Boga Legend, Patsy Star and Make Whole. Always with this, when there's one number missing in the sequence, include it. So 7, 9 and 10, I'm going to put in the 8 Mask of Zorro for a bit of fun. So 7, 8, 9 and 10 Quinella. Trifecta, I'll do the same, but I'll throw in Pure Grunt. So 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. All right, race 5 at Caulfield. Another big field, another open race. Little Jack was really good last start, and I think it's a favourite with that form, with the good barrier that you can get around at the 420. It's an open race, however, that offers a lot of value. Torrenzino sort of just battled last start. I liked it then. I'm not sure about it tomorrow at the 9. Fagan was good last time. Can't knock that form. It chased hard behind Little Jack. Down in the weight today and offers decent value. Fireglow too, I could probably say the same thing. It's been consistent. Jabberwockies was in the worst sort of ground last time, but I was impressed with the way that it ran on, and it sort of gave the signs that it is going to handle these distances going forward. So a lot to like there. Got to Be Savvy also ran on really well behind Little Jack. Not sure with barrier 13 tomorrow where it will, if it will settle too far back. Golden Crusader, interesting. It's sort of trying to find its best form this prep, 6th, 2nd and 5th. It's 10 to 1. I wouldn't be surprised if that returned to form. It's one of those races where there's just so many horses you can make a case for where you sort of just have to draw the line at some point. I mean, even ones like Concord, good international form. Desperado was good last start. I think that the conditions on the day sort of led to it winning. I don't know if I really want to be on it this time. Noble Knight, back that last start at big odds, ran 7th. I feel like it's only going to improve. So that is a horse that I'd like to sort of be on as well. T. Waters is always running in these races and sometimes bobs up. I don't like it on the wet. And then Lionel has sort of been out of form. So taking it all together, I think the place on Noble Knight makes sense, just to have to see if that can improve. Each way on Little Jack is the favourite, I think is fine. And then this race, and also in some of the other races tomorrow, it gives the option of taking some Quinellas and Trifectas with some low numbers that you wouldn't normally see. So in this race, for example, I like 10, 12, 13 and 17, which if you get it, it just even adds that extra bit of value, because there'll be people out there who are purely playing numbers and might always do 1 and 10 or might always do 2, 3, 4 and 5. And if you get a Quinella for 13 and 17, well, you're going to scoop a bit of that pool. And you don't normally find those are numbers that you're often taking, your 13s, your 17s, your 19s, your 20s. So to recap, Quinella, Little Jack, Jabberwockies, Fireglow 2, Fagan, and then a trifecta for the same numbers, 10, 12, 13 and 17. Okay, race 6 at Caulfield. I feel like it's Groundhog Day and it's just the same sort of scenario as the previous race. Big field, quite open, favourite at a similar price, lots of possibilities. Is it a great betting race? Questionable. Nation's Call, 2 good wins, at its 2 recent starts, drops in weight out of Frankel. There's a lot to like from barrier 10, international form. What a Deal has had 3 good runs back, all fairly close, and now it gets to the wet track that it wants. So that offers a lot of value at $23. Prince of Helena is an interesting runner. The form is a lot better than it looks, and it was very good behind chasing Munamek. And then Alder is an interesting international runner, good form. I feel like that would be primed for tomorrow. So it's hard to line up. I think things like Precious Charm, I like Wild as a trainer and bringing that to the city. I'm going to include that in some exotics. Unseen Ruler, even number 20 at $18, I think has got a good chance. And Tabay did nothing wrong, was very, very good first up, and here finds itself $11. So out of that, I think Nation's Call makes a lot of sense as an each way bet. I'm just going to go Alder instead for no particular reason other than that I rate the international form, and I think the race is open enough that you could choose many. You could choose to Bayshore as well, but I'll go with Alder each way. A $5 bonus bet on What a Deal for the place. I think there's a lot of value there. And then a big Quinella. So to Bayshore, What a Deal, Crackerjack Prince, Nation's Call, Precious Charm and Unseen Ruler as a Quinella. And then some sort of trifecta based on those numbers as well. I'll post that in the bets at the end. But that will be an interesting race to see whether Nation's Call can continue on the form in the city and what eventuates when they settle. Okay, getting back to a sprint trip, race 7 over the 1,100 metres. A lot of value here. Major shares coming off some really good wins and coming to the city, and it's going to contend with one of my horses I've liked from the previous runs, Marble 9, who's had some good runs down the straight and in city grade, and it's going to be a bit of a contest between those two. But then there's also horses like Reveline at 20-1, only had 4 starts, but a first, 2 seconds and an unplaced run offers a lot of value. A lot of value also offered by Unconquerable at 40-1. Le Parain has been good this prep. Back Title Fighter last start. It sort of wilted out of it. I'm not certain how it's going to go tomorrow. And Oak Hill was really well tried last start, and the same for tomorrow. Get-alongs at 6. The question mark's probably the wet track, and also barrier 10's a little bit wide. So distilling that down, this is a race I think I'll use some of the bonus bets. So a $5 bonus bet win on Reveline, $5 bonus bet for the place on Unconquerable at big odds. The each way Marble 9, I think at $7.50 it offers good value. And then a Quinella, Le Parain, Marble 9, Unconquerable and Reveline. And then the same for a trifecta, but adding in that favourite major share. And then something for the place just as a saver on Title Fighter in case it does return to great form. All right, getting to the end of the meeting and getting to the best race of the day, race 8, another sprint trip. We are the John Monash Stakes, 1,100 metres. Only 8 runners, but it is interesting. Ashford Street is the top, number 1. It's probably the class runner. It's got the wet form. It's going to get back from barrier 3, so it's a little bit of a question mark there. The favourite is Recommendation at 280. It's won 6 of 16 and then placed in another of those 6, so placed 12 out of 16. It looks like a good winning strike rate, but it has only won 2 of its last 9. Admittedly, it's been close up in a lot of those races, but hasn't sort of found a way to win. And some of those, have been Group 1. Last was at Yarra Glen, where it ran 6th. So it doesn't make me want to take the 280. Mornington Glory's been good, very consistent. It's first up tomorrow. It's probably going to settle in the middle of the field, and it hasn't really got any wet track form to speak of. So at the 340 there, a little bit of a question mark. Senegali is going to go back. It does prefer dry. It's okay on wet. Miss Chrissy looks good on paper in terms of winning strike rate, place strike rate. It does like the wet, but it is a big class jump. I think it's going to be a little bit out of its comfort zone in this race. Not to say that it won't do anything. Little Miss Kubi, sort of similar scenario. Party for 2 comes down from Queensland, this prep, it has been good. It's been very close up. And it's interestingly, for a small field at Caulfield, it's probably one of the only horses that's definitely going to lead and might not have a lot of company or challenge there. So I can see that getting a fairly easy lead from barrier 1. Question mark will be, can it hold on, and will it swim through the slow conditions as well as some of the others? And then Shiva doesn't really like the wet. So distilling it down, I think that Ashford Street makes the most sense from a class and safety point of view. So each way on Ashford Street, and then a Quinella, Ashford Street as a standout with Party for 2 number 7 and Shiva number 8, just in case Shiva does something. And I could see Party for 2 leading, holding on for most of the straight, and then Ashford Street maybe running it down or running into second. So to recap, Quinella, Ashford Street with the 7 and the 8. And then a trifecta, same sort of idea. Ashford Street number 1 and Party for 2 number 7 as roving bankers, and do that with the field. And then one small trifecta, just in case recommendation does win. So recommendation to win, field for second, assuming that there might be some outsider that can run second to it, and then Ashford Street for third. Race 9, going to keep it simple. I think it's a bit of a similar scenario to last week. It's the same bunch of horses, really. St. Lawrence, Rheinberg, Charlton Lane. I think I'm just going to stick with Rheinberg each way. I think Lafargue's a good chance as well. It wasn't a race that I really... It's just a question mark about how the track will be by that time of the day. I'm just happy to go with Rheinberg each way and just see what happens really there. Okay, so jumping into the AFL, it seems all of a sudden like a very long time since we had the collect in round 1. So recapping the games, Collingwood Geelong, Friday night at the MCG. It always pays to back Collingwood at the MCG, sort of no matter what. Tonight they're going to have to contend with a lot. The continued run of injuries, no Myercheck, a Geelong that's sort of got its groove back, and wet conditions. Geelong just love wet weather football and are really good at it. So the default initially for me was back Collingwood at the MCG. Based on the rain, I'm just going to think that Geelong are going to win. Hawthorn Freo in Tassie. Hawthorn are usually, if it's in Tassie, usually pick them. They've lost their last 2 against Freo, and they seem to not match up that well against them. Considering the form Freo are in, I would rather be on them, but anything can happen down there. Hawthorn obviously having the loss last week might be a little bit flat after that string of wins, so probably an extra reason to lean into Freo. City versus North. I know that North won last week, but this is back at the SCG, and no one will be tipping North. It'll be everyone across the board will be tipping Sydney as far as the eye can see. No value in terms of betting, so we move on from that. Western Bulldogs versus Carlton at Marvel. This is so interesting for the 8, whether the Dogs can stay in touch. They were so poor against the Power last week. No Norton this time. Carlton lost obviously to GWS, so that's the end of their big winning streak. And as we know, teams usually lose 2 in a row, like City did last week against St Kilda. It is Patrick Cripps' 200th, which I'm all about milestone games. I think that teams do live for them, contrary to other thoughts. And I could imagine that they will lift this week. It's probably not a great betting game despite that, although you can sort of see value either way. The Dogs play their best football at Marvel, and they really need to win. So that could count for something. Adelaide St Kilda at Adelaide Oval. I'm just going to say straight up that St Kilda won last week more because Sydney sort of lost the will to go on rather than anything else. And St Kilda have been so unpredictable this season. I am just going to assume that Adelaide are going to win over there, although nothing would surprise. Melbourne without Gawn just seems a very tricky proposition. I like Essendon. The last Friday was great. They've had some matches now at the MCG to get into sort of form there, and yeah, without Gawn, I just it takes a lot away from Melbourne. So Essendon there. Gold Coast versus Port Adelaide. I just want to avoid the Power at all costs. At all costs. They're so fickle. They're so up and down. Gold Coast the same in a sense. Without Tukamilla now, that makes things tough. So that is a 100% avoid betting game. Richmond versus the Giants at the MCG. It'll be interesting if Richmond can offer anything. That factor alone of their possible good form at the MCG makes me want to avoid. And then West Coast against Brisbane. I do like the new coach scenario normally, just based on what West Coast have offered the last few weeks. I couldn't possibly get excited, but as we know, form can change drastically, and Brisbane have dropped some strange games this season. It may not be a great betting game in that sense. So looking at this week, I'm going to avoid the Collingwood-Geelong game just because of the respect I've got for Collingwood at the MCG, even though it probably looks like Geelong would win. I'm just going to stick to back to the 3-game scenario. So Adelaide to win, Essendon to win, Brisbane to win. We'll do 20 on that, post it on the screen, and hopefully, worst case scenario, we'll get a bonus bet back to play with next week. So that's a recap of Caulfield this week. Haven't looked at haven't put bets on for the other meetings, just focusing on Caulfield. We're in a good position now betting wise, so hopefully we can just sort of get a return back this week around the $50 mark or just above, and we will roll on into week 5. So as always, great luck for tomorrow. Let's see how the tracks are playing. Melbourne and Adelaide should both be wet. Sydney and Brisbane should both be dry. Let's see with Caulfield how the track is playing. It hasn't been the usual on-speed dominated track that it has been lately. Probably with the wet conditions, it won't be again. It'll be some sort of run-on, and especially in the longer distance races, they can sort of buck the trend of the speed anyway. So, good luck and great punting.
Done our dough, chaps. We've done our dough.